Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Berryman here, coalition builder and founder of Bringing Humanity Together. Welcome to another edition of Conversations for Humanity here on LinkedIn, Facebook, and also our YouTube channel. Our special guest today is a great friend of mine, and I've had the honor and privilege to get to know her. She's a great friend of mine. JoAnna's here to come share her story with us on Conversation for Humanity. And the way we actually got connected is there was a community group way back in the day. And JoAnna, I believe you remember this. Remember that group called Humans First? Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's
That's
how we
right,
got
right?
connected, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That was like 5 years ago. It's wild.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It's in the Wayback Machine. It's way, way back there.
Mhm.
But yeah, JoAnna has been so kind and just really just so honored by even probably the opportunity to share her story. But that's why I sent her the message to say, hey, you got to share your story on Conversation for Humanity. So, JoAnna, we're glad that you are here. So, the show is yours. So, please come share your story with us here today on Conversation for Humanity.
Well, first and foremost, thank you very much, Chris, for the opportunity and for the space and for all that you do for humanity. You are just such a wonderful, bright ray of light, and anyone who knows you is lucky to have you as a friend. So I would like to extend my gratitude for giving me this space. Um, Sharing my story is just such a wild call to action, I suppose we would call it in the marketing world. Um, I am going to be 40 this year, so October is going to be my 40th birthday. So it's kind of hard to condense 40 years into a sound bite or a sound clip, but I will be able to at least give a little bit of information on kind of how my journey has unfolded. Before I do that, I do want to say that I am absolutely grateful to be where I am today at 3:01 p.m. on August the 21st, 2024. All the struggles and all the different things that have happened in my life have brought me to this place. And I am grateful for that. And I feel as though there are times when I think back and wonder if I made different decisions, if I was born in a different place, if things happened in a different way, maybe I would have been further along on my journey. But then that's not the way life works, right? Life isn't linear. Life doesn't go just straight across where anybody lives a life that maybe from the outside it looks like it's simple, but there are always struggles that happen within. So just to start, I was born in New Jersey, so I grew up for my first 27 years living in New Jersey in the northeast part of Jersey. So I was about 15 miles from Manhattan in a little town called, well, not little actually, it was kind of big, called Bloomfield, New Jersey. Most people know the airport in New Jersey, which is Newark Airport, or they know where the New York Giants and the New York Jets play, which is in New Jersey. And I was right smack dab in the middle of those two, very, very close to Giant Stadium, and about 15 minutes to Giant Stadium, about 20 minutes to Newark Airport. Not the best area to grow up in. There was a very big high school. There was a lot of kind of crime and different things like that that happened. But I knew that from a very, very young age, I knew that I wanted to be a mom. I knew that I wanted to be a mother, and I knew that I wanted to not raise my family in that area. So speed it up a little bit. That's the beginning of the JoAnna story. I ended up I'm now divorced, but I ended up marrying someone from the same town as me. And we moved up to Connecticut together. So now I live in this adorable, tiny little beach seaside community, Waterford, Connecticut, which is very close to Mystic. It is a beautiful little town. And I live here and chose this town because my mom's sister lives here. So my mom's sister and my uncle live here. So I have family, I have cousins, I have a whole bunch of connections here, which is just beautiful. Every Sunday, I go over to my aunt's house and we do family dinner, which is just something that I think is very important for children, especially nowadays, to have the different generations around and in their life. I think it's just important to create that community. Um, I moved up here, as I said, it's going to be 13 years this November, which is wild, uh, a very wild recollection to think that it went that fast. But I had gotten married, I guess, in 2014. and divorced in 2019. So I only lasted 4 years in that marriage. It ended pretty traumatically. There was domestic violence involved. I had to get a restraining order. I filed for that as well as a divorce in the same day just to try to be free. I was living at my aunt's house for a little while before ending up back home, but that was after we had separated and he had a different place to live. That journey was very, very difficult. At that time in 2019, I stand about 5'9". I'm a pretty tall female. And I was 106 pounds when I left. I was having heart problems. I was having dental issues. I was having so many type of health issues. And I don't think I would have realized everything that was happening unless I got the physical issues, because it made it come to the forefront. The human psyche, we can excuse different things, and we can make excuses for other people's behavior pretty easily, especially if we want to love and support them no matter what. But for me, it was when it started to take such a strong effect on my physical being that I knew I had to get free from that. And since then, I have brought myself back up to a pretty lovely place. I own my own home. I have my own vehicle. I have a job. I'm the Girl Scout leader. I'm opening up a group for my son and his friends. I volunteer for the domestic violence shelter. I volunteer for a national domestic violence committee. I run for the town. I volunteer for the Youth and Family Services Advisory Board. Hopefully I'm going to get on one other board this year, volunteer my time for that. And it's just such a wonderful place to be. And I wouldn't be in this spot if I didn't realize how impactful being isolated from your community is. And then once I got free from that and realized that I couldn't do it alone, and I had to ask for help, and I had to lean on people, even for housing, which is something that is so foreign to me, that really, really impacted my view of the world and how connected we all are. So just to go into a little bit, when it comes to the community aspect with Girl Scouts this year, that's what we're focusing on. And one of the things we're doing next month is we're going to do a lemonade stand and try to collect some money and donate it to an animal sanctuary and have all the girls go up there and help out and volunteer with other members of the community that are doing really good things. I think it's very important to expose our children to those types of things early on. And I think it's an unfair burden also to place on school teachers to make sure that they give our children everything. I mean, we need to take responsibility and give these children these experiences. And I just feel grateful that I'm able to do that at this point. And I think that is the quick and dirty 5-minute JoAnna story. There's many more.
Oh my, come on. You got to have more.
I could go on forever, but I didn't know if you wanted to ask any specific questions, Chris, or if you had anything that you wanted to go into.
This is your show, your story. I'm not, remember, like I said before, this is not even scripted. So whatever comes to mind, you will be asked, I guarantee you, and everything like that. But going back to Giant Stadium and everything like that, in East Rutherford, New Jersey, no less. Now, I got to ask you, since that was nothing but at one point swampland, how in the world did they build that stadium?
I don't know how they built the stadium on it, and I also don't know how they built the American Dream on it after I left, because now there's a whole indoor amusement park over there, which is—
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's based off of Nickelodeon shows, and they have indoor, I think even indoor skiing. It's an even bigger place than Giant Stadium, but it is very interesting because when I was growing up, it's still all swampland and gross all around it. I don't know how they build a strong foundation there, but that's where a lot of crime happens. That's where bodies get dumped and people go missing and things like that. So it was never a very lovingly looked at place, we'll say. And every time you drove home from New York City, we would drive right past that and you would just smell home.
Wow.
America.
So now, if I'm correct in getting this, are you saying that Mall of America there in Minnesota is going to have something run for their money because now East Rutherford got an indoor skiing venue? Are you kidding me?
It's been there for quite a while. When I left 13 years ago, they were building it, and then they stopped because there was some sort of financing issues. But the American Dream, yeah, it's in Rutherford. And yeah, they have a water park, a ski slope, and stores. And
Oh my word!
yeah, so even more than I thought. And it was always such an ugly sore thumb of a place from the outside, but glad to see they have figured out some of that since my absence.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is wild. Because I know Mall of America is supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
like one of the largest malls in North America because
Mm-hmm.
it's so big and everything like that. But to have an indoor ski slope, that just blows my mind.
Yeah. And a water park. Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew? I have to get down there and see it in the flesh at some point.
What
But I
in
imagine
there?
the traffic just gets more and more disgusting as those things get built up.
Yeah. But isn't there, if I remember right, there's even a hotel in Mall of America, if I remember correctly, like Great Bear or something like that.
Great Wolf Lodge. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. They just built one up here in the casino in Connecticut, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is amazing.
I
Man,
will say one of the biggest things I miss about living down there is the bread and the bakeries and the pizza. It's not the same up here in Connecticut.
totally different, isn't it?
Nope. But yeah, I mean, but there's also something beautiful, and I know that you know this, Chris. But this past July, I went for a family vacation, a little trip to Italy with my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin, and it's so beautiful to go back to where your heritage is from. And I know that we've had conversations before
Right.
about authenticity and being authentic, and I looked it up just before this call because that's just what I do. But I looked up the definition of authentic, and it is of undisputed origin. And it just made me think in big picture how, especially as Americans, and I know people across the world, it's just my lived experience, so I could speak from that stance. But as Americans, we are American. That's where I live. That's where I was born. That's my nationality. But my origin, despite being born here, is actually much wider and much larger than that. And when you think about everybody that's here and everyone's different paths and different origins, it makes you realize how small the world actually is and how much we have in common. So I just love to think about how beautiful that is and how our origins make us authentic.
Yes. Yes. And since we talked a little bit about neighborhoods and how our environment can kind of shape us, since you were in Italy, you got to tell us how good is the coffee shops there in Italy? You got to tell us more.
All right. So I will say, my hotel, the coffee was very disappointing. It was probably the worst part of the hotel. It was very cute, but they had one of those machines where you push the button and it drips out, and it tasted very much like American espresso. But then one of my cousin who was there with me, one of our favorite games to play was every time we got into a new cab or a new taxi, and usually in the morning when we were going on our adventure for the day, we would always ask them if they would take us to their favorite coffee shop, because we had gotten coffee in the touristy areas too as the days went on. But when they took us, they call them in Italy, they call them bars. So it's basically, in New Jersey, we'd call them bodegas. So it's basically a place where you go and you can get coffee and cigarettes and newspaper, Coca-Cola, just a little shop. You can get some snacks. Maybe they have a buttered roll in the morning. Nothing wild. But the interesting part about Italy, when you went to these tiny shops where these people who lived there were bringing us to their favorite places, so it wasn't touristy. They do coffee in the morning, and then they're also alcohol, and they do alcohol in the evening. So they call them bars. But the beauty is when at least in America, for me, you get into your little drive-through, you're going to Starbucks, you're going to Dunkin' Donuts, you tell them what you want, you go to the next window, you pay, and then you get your coffee and you leave. Well, in Italy, the most beautiful part of it was you walk into the little shops, you stand at the bar, they give you whatever type. Do you want espresso, macchiato, a latte? Like everyone has their own favorite type of coffee, and you sit there and you talk. So if you are going to work every day and you're going to the same bar and the same cafe, whatever you want to call it, every day, you're going to run into a lot of the same people because you're doing it at the same times and in the same location. And so you start your day off with a conversation. And as you know, an espresso or a macchiato is a very small drink. So you're not standing there for 3 hours drinking it, talking to everyone. and it's a very quick thing. You go in, you say hello, you find out how someone's family members are doing, and you just keep moving along with your day. But you start with connection, which I think is such a beautiful thing. And then on your way home from work, if you need to stop and have a martini, or you need to stop and have a glass of wine, you go to the same place, some of the same people are there, and you go and you continue the conversation. How was your day? Oh, I wanted to pull my hair out. And you get it all off your chest. I feel like in America, and this also kind of goes back to my story a little bit, but in America, we isolate more than I think we realize. We drive to the food store and then we drive home with our bags just by ourselves, unless you're bringing your kids or your family members or something like that. In America, we drive to the coffee place and we just order our one thing and then we go. But we really don't have a lot of places where we come together and connect. And yes, we do have bars where people go and drink after work and stuff like that. But I feel like even those are a much bigger space. You're sitting at a very large bar with a whole bunch of different people. Whereas this, you're kind of, I mean, you could fit 6 or 7 people and people aren't staying there all night. It's quick conversations. Food, when they have fruits and vegetables come on like a little truck that someone's picking out or purchasing from different farms. And if you want to purchase those, you walk downstairs and you talk to Giovanni as he's standing at his car asking you what you want. Oh, we got tomatoes and peppers today. So you're not going into the store and picking them out of this pile. You're having conversations all day long and you're connecting with people all day long and you're learning about their families and you begin to care more about them. I think that's something we could learn from that culture in America and even bring it to little spaces. Like I was just saying with Girl Scouts, we come together and we're going to do different things with the community, but those little tiny ripples are going to widen people's perspectives and widen these little girls' exposure. And when I'm doing a group with my son this summer, so widen the little boys' exposure, and you get to see how big the world is and how we can intercommunicate and interact with one another, which is honestly just so beautiful to me.
It is, and I love that because we were actually talking about the little things that can lead into bigger things. And on the call that I had this morning with Coffee with Chris, and I truly believe that could be there because when we just focus on the small things, we don't have to get overburdened with the big things and get overwhelmed and that kind of thing and say, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with this and everything like that. Proof positive of that, when you're staying in Italy like you were, and you can literally go to the same coffee shop / bar, however you want to call it, and still have the same conversation or maybe even a completely different one with the same person from morning to night, it creates, oh my God, a whole different environment because then you can say, I start my day with a great macchiato, and then next thing you know, we're wrapping up the day with a nice little gin and tonic, and we're just relaxing and everything like that. But you're absolutely right. Conversation goes on the whole entire day. And I believe you're absolutely right. We've been isolating ourselves from the opportunity of conversation, have we not?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you're in the grocery store and you see someone, if it's someone you know, you might have a conversation, but more than just a smile and a wave, it kind of feels awkward sometimes to jumpstart that type of a conversation because you don't know if that person's in a rush, if they're busy, if they're trying to get out of there. And that's how we operate more often than not. I mean, I know when I go to the grocery store, I try to smile and wave at the most people that I see, but there are also a lot of times where I'm just like, gotta go get the 6 things I need to make dinner in 10 minutes. And then I got to take this one to cheer practice and that one over here. So you really do lose that element of just moseying along. And just imagine how if you live alone, which I know it can be even more isolating, but if you live alone and you go to a coffee shop every day and you see whoever, Maria, every single morning you run into Maria, you have a conversation. And then if Maria's not there for 2 days in a row, you're going to wonder why. You're going to try to reach out. You're going to try to see what's going on. And I think that is helpful in and of itself to know that people care about you and to create those bonds. I read a book recently called The Connected Species by a man named, I think it's Mark Williams. He's a man from Australia, and I really enjoy reading psychological books from different countries because you get to see different perspectives and how some things are very similar and some things are obviously not. But he wrote a lot about American culture from his perspective, which is obviously an outsider looking in. And some of the stuff was spot on that I couldn't even recognize from being in here. And a lot of it has to do with our And I think that this goes across many different realms, but our ability to create in-groups and out-groups, and how evolutionarily that was something that we needed, because we didn't really know if the people who were living, who we just would see walk up to us, were good or not good, if they were going to harm us or if they were going to be a part of us. So you had to look at them as outsiders until they became insiders. So for hundreds of thousands of years, our brains have evolved to have in-groups and out-groups. And the only thing that we have to do to make it better is to widen our in-groups and to look at people that are more like us. And the only way to do that is to start having conversations with those types of people, and to go up to people maybe that you wouldn't have normally talked to because you might have been frightened, or you might have thought that they had too many tattoos, or whatever the reason might be, and just really start having that conversation and being open. And we would be so amazed at how easy it is to connect with just about anyone.
Exactly. And I know you brought that up on one of the friendship benches not too long ago, and that really struck a chord with me, because you're absolutely right. There are two groups that we actually have been associated with since the dawn of time, which is the in crowd and the out crowd, so to speak, and everything. But how do we combine them? I think is the better question to ask, is how can we get the in crowd to be on the out crowd, so to speak, in and of itself. And I kid you not, it brings me up back to that one video. I gotta remember who was it who did it. It's taught in leadership courses and universities across the world. It's from Derek Sievers. It's called "How to Start a Movement." I mean, it is wild. It is in fact, I have it right here, and I'm going to hold on. Let me go to it first and pull it up, because it really is truly amazing, because it really shows how you can get people together, even by not even saying a word, mind you. Now, JoAnna, I know we're all about conversations and everything like that, but this is truly a proof positive in this. And by you just sharing that with me right now, I'm kind of compelled to kind of share it, because I truly believe it's proof positive how we can actually uplift and engage humanity in so many different ways. But like I said, this guy, whose name is Derek Sievers, he actually is a TEDx speaker, and he's been doing this video in leadership courses and classes throughout the world. In fact, this is like a worldwide thing, but it teaches us so much, not only about communication, but inclusion, togetherness, authenticity, spontaneity, and everything in between. And on the other side of this, I would love for you to give me your thoughts on this, JoAnna, because I truly believe it's going to knock your socks off. But just watch this for a moment. And I truly believe the in crowd and the out crowd can truly come together. And I believe this is one way possible that we can do that. And just take a look at this. It's going to blow your mind, ladies and gentlemen. It really will.
We've got passion, we've got determination. And if we set our sights on something, you better believe it's happening.
We always felt like our content was all about entertainment.
People, now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement.
I'll start at the beginning.
So ladies and gentlemen, at TED, we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes, and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course, you know, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So first, if you are the type, like the shirtless dancing guy, that is standing alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy was first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, that would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that, Ted. Thanks.
Now, JoAnna, you gotta tell me what you think about that.
It breaks it down very simply, and it's very true. It only takes one person to create something like that, but they can't do it alone.
Right.
And I also think I can see your point with the in crowds and the out crowds. But also I want to just raise that if you were dancing, right, you were part of the in crowd, and you look at the people sitting as the out crowd. But if you are sitting, the people sitting with you are your in crowd, and the people dancing are the out crowd. So we could see how people could argue or fight in any situation. We hold on to what we believe is right and what we believe we should be doing. Half of those people believe they should be dancing, and half of those people believe they should be sitting. So I think that we still just need to learn how to meld those two groups together. And a concert's a beautiful thing, is what I'm assuming that was. We're all at the concert, we're all enjoying music, but we get to do it the way we want to.
Yeah.
But then if we spread that out even further, we're all here enjoying this concert. We clearly all like this band, so we're all in this together. And then if you just keep widening the circles, you can. I mean, if you think about some of the world's greatest leaders, that's all they did. They widened the in circle. Nelson Mandela wasn't all, my group is the best group. He was like, we have to spread out and love one another. Martin Luther King Jr., same thing. We need to treat everybody equally. He didn't say, I have a dream that Black children do this. He said that all children get to grow up in a place. He brought the in group wider than what most people do. And I think that part is what we need to remember, because I mean, we're human, right? So we have confirmation bias. Our brains are just completely and utterly biased. We want to see people like us. We want to support people that we think are going at this in the right way, but we can all have our own opinions, and we're not necessarily wrong. But we just have to widen our experience and widen our perspective. So you have to catch yourself when you notice your brain going towards biases, which, I mean, biases kept us safe for hundreds of thousands of years before we could speak to each other. Speech has only been around for what, a few hundred years, if that, 500-600 years.
Yep.
So we didn't communicate this way for far longer than we have communicated this way. So our brain does a lot of things when it's just, you can notice body language in someone when you're in the same room with them. You can notice if they're sweating, if they're smiling, if they're antsy. Some of those things you can't really notice if you're not sitting in front of them. And I feel like that's similar on, if you're looking at a big Zoom call and you see like the panel of people and there's 20 people, you all think they're looking at you because everyone's looking at the little circle in their laptop or their computer.
Yep.
But they could be looking at anything and we don't know. And then everyone raises their hand and they talk in order. That's not how it works when you're working together in a group. one person talks, everybody looks at the other person, they talk. There's a lot more body language that goes on. So
Yeah.
maybe we're evolving into communicating in multiple different ways. That could be another beautiful element to it, but there's definitely a change happening.
You're absolutely right. In the communication tools that we have been gifted to us, and I truly believe with the age of technology actually aiding us in that effective communication, I truly believe this, JoAnna, we're destined to evolve. Number one, as a species, we're destined to evolve. That's going to happen. It's not a matter of if; it's going to be a matter of when. But the way we even will communicate will be totally different and unique than what we even currently are doing right here, right now. Then maybe just think about this, and I kind of use this as an example with a lot of people. I was like, hey, maybe in 15 or 20 years down the road, you could be able to say to your kids or grandkids or whoever and say, hey, this is how I got started on my journey here at Bring Humanity Together or Mark O'Brien Communications or whatever that might be, and be able to say it started with a conversation on a thing called the friendship bench. And you'd be like, what's that? Well, that was a video call. Oh, we do everything now with holograms and everything like that. And then people will be saying, no, that's not the way we communicated back in the day and everything like that. And embrace that sense of nostalgia and maybe a simplicity, because when the future generations see how we communicated, maybe they can go and say, hey, wait a minute. It's better to probably sit down in a coffee shop, talk shop a little bit with somebody, and really see not only what they've done at the beginning of the day, because I saw them there right at that coffee shop, but then had a drink with them later on in that day, and they just threw everything at me. Oh, we got this new shipment of this in. We got new shipments of that in. And I'm on the hush hush on this and everything like that. You get to find out who people really are. And I truly believe, especially in your vacation stay there in Italy, maybe those are the kind of conversations we really need to really honor and embrace. That really, it doesn't have to take technology to do it. We just got to be willing to show up to those conversations.
Absolutely. And it's beautiful to think, because you did mention my work. So Mark and I actually met in Nashville, Tennessee. We were both at a conference, and I used to work for one of his clients. So we had talked on the phone. Zoom wasn't a really big thing then. It was all conference calls where everybody just logged in and talked on the phone. But it was interesting because him and I ended up sitting next to each other at dinner one night, and we were talking about anything and everything under the sun. Neither one of us are difficult to converse with. But he didn't realize how much I had read, because like I would handle things on the call, but he didn't know anything about who JoAnna was as a person. And he said when he went home, he told his wife, I wish that JoAnna had a twin. I would hire her tomorrow. And I can't take her away from my client. So then 2 weeks later, the person that I was working for was a smaller business. They just didn't have as much funding as they had when they originally hired me. They weren't getting the clients. And so they had laid me off and said they would contact me back when they had enough money to bring me back on board. And so Mark had a call with them, and they said, oh, JoAnna's not here today. And he's like, not here today? And they were like, well, we let her go. And he called me that afternoon, and he was like, I can't believe this is my luck. Like, this is so wonderful. And I remember it was the end of July, and I said to him, I've never collected unemployment up until that point, and never again since. But I said, can I just have like the month of August off? Like, I just want to have a good summer month, and then I will start like September or whatever it was. Maybe I wanted a month off, because August 13th was my anniversary. So it's been 14 years that I've been working with Mark, which is a very long time. That's just a conversation, right? Like, he had known me virtually for probably a year at that point, but it took that in-person conversation to be able to really get to know the authentic person. And I think there's something very beautiful about that. We do need to get out there more. And I think that was one of the best parts about conventions, when you would go out and have conversations, but then they turned into these super, we need to go and get business. We need to go and do this. We need to go and have these meetings and have these conversations. It wasn't just about going there and having a good time anymore, which I think is something that maybe we need to get back to. Who needs the exhibit room floor with 75 booths and giving out
I agree.
Like, let's just have a meeting where, you just put a name tag on and have a conversation. And then even when you do those big conferences, like this booth is 20 by 10, so they stand out twice as much as the booths by 10 by 10. But you don't know if that's a better product or not, and most of the time it isn't. They just have a lot more money to spend. So it would be interesting to bring some sort of conversation when it comes to the business world.
This just came to mind while you were sharing that, and I truly believe, I'm going to put this as a caveat, I would love to have both you and Mark on the same call. I'm just putting that out there. But this is what came to mind to me when you were talking about the conventions and all those kind of things. When you really think about it, at its very core, JoAnna, a convention is kind of the dynamic of what you just said earlier about the in crowd and out crowd.
Mm-hmm.
When you really think about it. And why have we done that from a place maybe of one of competition when it should actually be about one of collaboration? And maybe that's something our conventions that we hold moving forward in the future that says, hey, it's not about the fastest speedboat or the gadget filled RV that you have that you can buy and all that kind of stuff, and say, well, wait a minute, I really want to get to know who you really are first. Because see, JoAnna, I truly believe, and like I said, I want to get your thoughts on this, is I truly believe the best sale that we can ever have in life or even in business is the one we never have to do.
Yeah. And coming from the world of marketing, we always say you just want to be authentic. You just want to share your story, and you just want to be able to make people interested. It should not be pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to get the numbers. Yes, it does add up every once in a while. If you make 150 phone calls, there's going to be one or two people who are interested. But there should be a better way about cultivating, because do those relationships usually last as long? I'm not so sure. But I do think that, like Michelle was saying, I miss the old school style. I mean, there are many parts of it that I do miss as well. I think we need to figure out a way to meld the worlds together. When you first meet someone, it should be in person. When you have conversations, you should, of course, have one or two in person over a few years. But you don't always have to, which is also a beautiful thing. So if we were talking 40 years ago, and you had a client that was in, say, I'm in Connecticut, and I had a client that was in Tennessee, you would have to fly out there multiple times and spend a lot of money on airlines just to get out there and see them face to face, besides just a phone call. Now we can do Zoom. But I do think that you need those touch points, and you need to have those conversations with people just so they can get to know you and believe in you and want to work with you, and not just do it for how many percentage of people click through every single email and click throughs and this and that and the other thing. It takes a while to build a story sometimes.
And see, I know there's a lot of people out there, JoAnna, that's always about the data. Show me the data. Show me the numbers. And I get that. I understand that. But maybe the proof is not really so much in the data. The proof is actually within the people that we actually connect with. That's where the proof therein lies. Because, again, proof to your point, when Mark called up that company and said, where's JoAnna today? Oh, JoAnna's not here no more. What? Are you kidding me? JoAnna's not here? And then that very same day, he calls you. That proves positive not only of the value, not only bestowed upon that former client that you were working with, but also what you did with Mark vicariously through that opportunity, but being on those calls from a virtual dynamic. And then he's like, hey, I wish she had a twin. Well, I'm not a twin no more. I'm live and in living color. I'm just only me, but you can get me.
Yeah.
You know, and I truly believe, JoAnna, when we just put that out there to everyone to see, we can bring that kind of simplicity back to our conversations that we don't have. Again, there's not been really one time that I've ever mentioned to anyone about the money. Because, see, when you put the money first, then people go and say, hey, this is nothing about the money. And that's all it's going to be relevant about and everything like that. It's always going to be relevant about the numbers. How many people have you sent an email to and got so many responses back? people are not going to care how many emails you send out and no one responds. I mean, who cares? And everything like that. But if they pick up the phone and say, hey, I'd like to talk to JoAnna today. Oh, JoAnna is no longer here. Well, where's she at? She's at Mark O'Brien Communications. Well, can you forward me her information? I got to talk to her staff. Because again, when you bestow that value onto people, even with the smallest things that you do or may not even know that you do, then they're going to end up saying, I want to know more. And that's that's the kind of dynamic in the power of conversation that we could have. Because then again, if you go back down to that shop for that coffee, or you go back to it for, let's say, a nightcap and whatever, and you go in there and say, hey, Bob, I've had a rough day, man. I just couldn't believe what happened at work today. And you go into the story of how that transpired. I guarantee you, more often than not, someone's going to end up listening to that. And I kid you not, Joy, and I believe this is something proof positive as well. When we share anything and everything, and whatever that might be at that present moment, when we're really thinking that we're talking to that person right next to us or in front of us or however that plays out, and really in reality, we're talking to the third person, because that third person is watching and saying, wait a minute, if she's no longer here, but now over here, how did I get her from over there to me and everything like that? And I truly believe it's almost, again, I have to go back to the kind of principle of the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing. It's like you have that 6 degrees of people that you know that you're so close to. I truly believe that would be proof positive. But like I said, when you go back down to that bar there in Italy and you tell them all that stuff that happened to you, someone's going to say, hey, JoAnna, I feel you. I understand that. You need to come work for me. Can you be there tomorrow? Yeah. And I truly believe that's one of the greatest gifts that you can do with somebody is when you hear that from somebody, the opportunity will knock. And then it's up to us to actually not only see that opportunity, but say, I'm going to answer that call when that opportunity shows up.
And then just to throw technology back into that for a little while too. So I'm going to talk briefly. There was one woman named Francesca who we met. She was a tour guide for an olive oil farm. So we went for an olive oil tasting. So she came, picked us up at the hotel, drove us to the olive oil farm. We did a tasting. Limoncello and olive oil was to die for. And then we went back with her. So she had brought us to one of her places. Now, my maiden name is Italian. So I was there with my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin, who also happens to be named Francesca. And we went with her to the bar and we had our drinks and stuff like that. But now to add technology to it, the next time I get to go to Sorrento, Italy, or the Amalfi Coast in Italy, I wish it could be next month, but I don't have the kind of money to be able to do that, nor do I have the time to be able to do that.
Right.
But with that being said, now I've made this connection with this woman. I learned about her husband, about her previous relationship, about her daughter, about her father and the land he left her when he passed away. Like we were very close. Like we had very good conversations for hours. I mean, I wish I could hug that woman every day at the bar getting a cup of coffee in the morning. But I'm friends with her now on Instagram.
Wow.
So now she gets to read all the things that I post and that I share. And then because the time difference, I'll usually post something and then I wake up in the morning and I have my Italian likes and then I have the day likes from America. And there were several people that I got connected with that way. So now those people are still alive to me. I can't necessarily go see them and have those conversations again, but I can still feel the way that I felt having conversations with them. So I think it's a very good, I think, like you said, we're evolving, but I think evolution doesn't mean you scrap one way of life and throw it to the side, right? When it was the little tiny amoeba that grew into a fish that grew into, and then we evolved into humans, you know what I mean? But it was one little thing at a time. So I think that it's just very important to remember that evolution doesn't mean scrap the old way and keep going. It just means to keep adding on. And if we look at our brain development, I mean, our frontal cortex in the last 1,000 years has grown enormously. And now we're able to have these executive functions and we're able to think about so many more different, so many bigger ideas and things that who knows what's going to happen in the next 1,000 years. Our frontal cortex could get, so we could have other cortex starting to develop that we didn't have before. We have no idea, but we're adding on. We're not scrapping one way and doing the other. We still have a limbic system that's going to help us breathe, and our heartbeats and everything else is still happening. We didn't get rid of that to be able to think so much powerfully. We're just adding on. And I think we need to realize that progress is not about scrapping one way and moving to a next. Progress is about just keep going forward. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, alignments are beautiful. You're absolutely right, Michelle. And I gotta ask you this though, JoAnna, because I know you have done a lot with not only Mark, but also what we've done with Dennis and the friendship bench and everything in between. But has there been a moment in your life, and besides the one with Mark, and I'm going to take that out of the mix for a second, but was there a moment in your life that literally said, JoAnna, you will be transformed by this, and this is the way it's going to show up for you? Has there been kind of one or maybe multiple of those that kind of said, my gosh, I have now been transformed? How's that played out for you?
I think for me, transformation is more of a looking back process than a looking forward for me.
Yeah.
I think that there have been a lot of synchronicities. When I look back, I can see those moments in time, but when I'm living in them, I don't think I would ever say there was one moment where I was magically erupted into anything or knew something magical was going to happen. I think the most magic that's happened in my life has come from hitting certain bottoms and picking myself back up, but you don't realize that you're picking yourself back up until you're up and you say, whoa, how is that me? It's funny. So I live, like I said, I live pretty much on the beach. I'm 5-minute car ride to the ocean. And it's so wonderful. I mean, I grew up in more of a city atmosphere where it took like an hour to get to the beach that was packed in New Jersey. This, I have like my own little beach where sometimes there's 3 people on it and you could just bring your dogs and run around. It's actually just land that people can use, which is just fine. You don't even have to pay. But I had met someone new and they had said to me like, oh, all you beach hippies are the same. And we talked about it and laughed about it because I said, the 20-year-old JoAnna would have loved to know that one day someone was going to refer to her as a beach hippie, and it was because of my like calmness and my yoga loving and like my personality. Like 20-year-old JoAnna with her long nails and her curly hair and her don't mess with me attitude would have loved to know that that was who she was going to be transformed into. But there was no moment, even the moment I moved up here, I didn't think I was going to transform into like a more peaceful, calm and happy life. Even during when I was in therapy, I mean, I remember saying to my therapist so many times, like, thank you so much for helping me, but thank you for figuring this out for me, thank you for doing all this for me. And she would always say, I haven't done anything, like you've done all the work. And bye, Lori. And so it was always just wonderful to hear that, because it is true. Like we put a lot on other people. And I think that's part of the reason why if you want therapy to work, it works, because you're just opening up to another human who's mirroring empathy for you and who's telling you things that you need to hear because you can't remember them yourself. Mm-hmm. And for a woman who I respected so much, who's a businesswoman, a dean of a college, a therapist, like she was everything all that I could ever imagine looking up to. And I remember saying something to her like that and her just being like, I'm proud of you. And I'm like, how are you proud of me? Like, I'm picking up the pieces of a broken life and trying to work through that. And to know that people can look at you and be proud of you because they can see the transformation much more in the moment than you can. But JoAnna today here, looking back at that JoAnna, like she did so much work and she didn't even realize what she was doing. And she got me here, which, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to have this life that I'm able to live.
Well, see, JoAnna, the reason why I asked you that is I truly believe it is those life events that, again, like you said, we can still look back on and say, hey, this is what made me who I am today. But I believe that's where it all starts. When we do have that one moment in our time on this planet that was that maybe life-changing and life-defining moment, and said to us, there's only, I won't say there's two ways that you can go, but there's multiple ways you can go when you really think about it. But it's about creating the power of choice in your life. You can either say, I can stay in this place and stay right here and be, oh, woe is me, I'm not going to get back up, feel sorry for myself or whatever. Or I could be like the other JoAnna, get back up, get on the horse, start riding out into the sunset, into a bigger and better place. But then again, I won't even realize until I'll be like, wait a minute, I came from there to here? How did I do that? And everything like that. But see, for me, I'm the kind of a forward thinker kind of person, because I truly believe when we take those life-defining moments, even in that present moment, it can even better shape our future more ways than we can even possibly fathom to imagine. Because if we do see a better life on the outside, and I'm of course looking at from the inside going to the outside kind of dynamic, and we see that better horizon for us, and we believe that that's going to be there. When we have that firm belief it will be, then it will be, because you almost are saying to yourself, come hell or high water, I'm going to get there, and everything like that. And sometimes it's those events in our lives, or even those very people, that can be able to say, hey, you got this, you can do this, and everything like that. And maybe that little nudge gives us to that next place, even though when they nudge us maybe this much, in reality, that nudge became that big. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe when that happens, it changes not only our life perception of life, but also our even our world view, even with the people that we know. And I guarantee you, and I got to ask you this, when you first met Mark, did you believe, I'm not putting labels here, but I'm just kind of wanting to get into the mind of where you were at the time. Did you take Mark as a completely different person then as you do now? And how did that play out in that journey? Because I'm sure with over the many calls and also the in-person conference that you had, I'm sure over time you kind of said, wait a minute, Mark's now this way one way, and now he's completely, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this about Mark. I mean, have you ever got to that point you're like, oh my God, another side of Mark I didn't even know?
I will say, before I jump into that, there's a movie, I don't know if you know, Finding Nemo.
Yes, I do know.
Just keep swimming. I feel
Dory,
like that's the answer. Just keep swimming, because you never know. And even now, like that I have this house, like I look and I'm like, I am the first female in my family to have purchased a house by herself. It's a tiny house. It's nothing that anyone would want to like brag about, but I will brag about it because it's mine. But just thinking about it, in that moment, I didn't say to myself, like, oh, I need to buy a house because I have to do this. I had chickens and I had a dog, so I had to buy a house. Like, there was no, I didn't even think about getting rid of my pets and my animals to get an apartment. Like, I just had to do it. So I was going to figure out how, and I was going to get money from my down payment for my 401k. And I was just going to do it. Like, there, just keep swimming. And now that I look back, I had bought it at the perfect time, November 2019. It's gone up 60% in equity. So now I have a chunk of change if I need it for anything. And those are all little synchronicities that I didn't even notice in the time. I just kept swimming. And then when you look back, you realize just not giving up is half the battle. Right. I could have given up. I could have flopped down and said, I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to do that. Let things drag on forever and ever and ever. But I decided that it was about me, and I got to decide the next version of my adventure. Now, when it comes to Mark, it's been 14 years, right? So the person you meet and the person you know after 14 years is definitely something very different. he has been to me a guru in so many ways. He has taught me how to find my voice. He's taught me how to write. And he hasn't taught me how to write by sitting down and having meetings with me and telling me what to do. He did it in a way that I would write and he would edit. I would write and he would edit. And for the last 6 or 7 years, I've been writing a blog post once a week, most of the time. Sometimes there are hiatuses because life happens, but most of the time. And he would write, he would review them and send them back. And that's how I learned grammar. That's how I learned what sounded right. And that's how I learned how to cultivate my voice. Now, you couldn't pay someone to give you that gift, to be able to find out what I mean to say and articulate it in a way that other people can understand and appreciate and read and say, you're a good writer. Like, that to me is something I never even envisioned for myself. I was very left-brained. I have a finance degree. I could do statistics in Excel, and that was what my brain liked to do. He showed me a completely other side of my mentality and of my thought process and of my cognitive ability, frankly. So he has given me so much. And to me, he's very much a father figure. I mean, I don't have the best relationship with my dad, so I have different people I take from different elements. I have my dad's brother is one of my father figures. My mom's sister's husband's another one. Mark is another one. I take from the people that I can to fill those voids so that I don't have any voids, right? I have everything that I need in my life. But he has been through so much with me over 14 years. I would trust him with every part of me. I would, and I mean that in work wise, if it was personal, if I had a problem, I knew I could go to him. If I needed, his wife is amazing. I would go to Anne for things if I needed to, just because I know that they are my parental figures in my life. And I know that they love me and I love them. And that's a beautiful thing to have in a working relationship. Just to be able to know that the person has your back is just something that you can't get just anywhere. And for us too, family first. So if I have to leave a little early to go to my Girl Scout meeting, or if I'm going somewhere, he will always, doctor's appointments, if my kid's sick, he's always family first. I don't even have to question it. I don't even have to feel bad. I don't have to worry if he's going to be upset or dock my pay because I needed to leave to go do something. It's always family first. And that's something you don't get everywhere. I talk to some of my friends who work at bigger companies, and I would there's no way to even fathom that for me. So it's definitely evolved, Mark and I, over the last 14 years. And I appreciate all that he is. And we are very different in very many ways, and we are very similar in very many ways, but he's definitely part of my in-group, no matter what group that is.
And I've learned a lot from Mark too as well. And like I said, I could see how that has really transpired for you, because I'm the kind of same way. I take things from a lot of different people and kind of mesh them all together and everything. And I truly believe when you just allow that to be there, the next thing you know, the whole dynamic of how you connect with people is completely different from once you started to where you are currently today. And for me, it's again about understanding that journey. And that journey is really, really, really powerful when you just allow it to be there, because it's like, I have to go back to that very video that Melissa shared about asking your 80-year-old self. If you was to go back and ask yourself when you were at that convention, hey, Mark, do you really want me cloning myself so you can actually have another one of me? I mean, and that just blows my mind what we can technically do. And I just truly believe when we, again, just show up as who we really are, we don't have to ask of anything more of anybody. And we don't have to say, hey, we got to clone you. We got to have triplets of you or whatever. We can just slowly say, hey, maybe the one person I need to have is right in front of me. I don't need any more, because that's the greatest gift. But you know what? If she has more people like her, I'll take that too. So you just never know.
Yeah, I agree. Life is a beautiful thing.
It is. It is. So if there was one thing that you can probably leave us here today with, that probably you've learned, probably, I won't say the most, but maybe it's the most impactful that has been on your life, what was that one thing that's been the most impactful thing that you've learned on this journey that is life?
There are so many. I would say be curious about the way that you think and the ideas that you have. We're not always right, so we have to be curious and uncover certain parts of our psyche in order to get better or in order to learn what our adventure is.
Right.
And also, all of the power that we need is within ourselves is another thing. Everything that you want to complete in your life or do in your life or figure out in life, you absolutely can. You just have to know that your power is within and stop reaching outward for other people to give you the answers. Just sit with it and you'll find it.
So you believe not only in the power of positivity and possibility, but also you believe in the power of the pause and the power of discernment.
Without a doubt. Meditation all day. And it's the same. Some people pray. Same thing. As long as you can sit with your thoughts in a quiet place for a short amount of time every day, you will notice your life getting better and better and better.
I know what you do. You take the dogs and you go down the street and you go hit the beach. I believe that's what you do.
When I don't have my kids around, yes. Otherwise, the kids come and not the dogs.
Yeah.
And even that's a beautiful part about living here. Even in the winter, even in the fall, like you still go to the beach in your winter jacket and your boots and you listen to the waves. There's just nothing like that.
I bet you just like putting your feet in the sand and you just like, this is the life.
It is.
And I have it feet away from me and so like right here.
Yep, it is.
Oh,
the second amazing. I get close enough to the beach, I take my flip-flops off and leave them at the entrance and just walk. I don't even bring them with me. And I was with somebody one time and they're like, aren't you scared someone's going to take your shoes? I'm like, who's going to steal my stinky shoes? Like, why is someone going to go after dirty flip-flops? Like, no one's going to do that.
Oh, I love it. I love it. But as always, JoAnna, I am so humbled and honored to have you in my life and that I can be in yours. And I can't wait to collaborate with you on many more things in and of itself. And for everyone watching, we would love for you to come share your story here with us at Conversation for Humanity, because you just never know. Not only can a story inspire you, but maybe that conversation can call us not only to connect, but it can also call us to act and collaborate. And I truly believe in that. So I would like to just leave my one thing that I have really learned in my life, JoAnna, that really has changed my life is the power of just believing. I do truly believe in the power of belief, because if you believe it, it will be there. And again, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's only a matter of when and how that pans out. Because again, we don't plan everything to a perfect T, because we recognize nothing's going to be perfect. But if we can just come as close to where we want to go, maybe that might be just enough. Because if we can just take it from the enough versus saying, hey, I got to have it perfectly here. I got to have my tray right here. I got to have my glass right here, and be so OCD, I kid you not, people will start going crazy. And I was like that for a lot of years. I had to actually have things in a certain way. And then I come to realize I'm not happy, because if someone kind of did this to my food, I'm like, wait, man, that's not the way I like my food and everything like that. So I just believe if you just let everything be for what it is, then it changes everything. And that's one of my biggest things that I've learned is just like I said, the power of belief and the power of letting it be, which is so interconnected. It's not even funny, but I just truly believe in that.
And I just want to add one thing to what you just described. If you know, Dr. Dan Siegel is one of my favorite psychiatrists, and I know that's a strange thing to say, but I like psychiatrists. But so he has this theory called the river of integration. And he says every single mental health problem that he could ever think of falls on one of the banks. So you could float down the river of integration your whole life and you just wait for things to happen as they happen. Some people are doing it on a floaty tube. Some people are on a surfboard. Everyone does it their own way. Some people are swimming. So there's not one way to do it. You could do it in any way you want. But on one side is the bank of chaos. And a lot of people land over there too often and get way comfortable on the bank of chaos. The other is the bank of rigidity, and that sounds like what you were describing. If you think you need to have every single thing done every single way, you're not floating.
Yeah.
You're struggling along that bank of rigidity. So it's nice to think about that. And there are times when every single one of us has a chaotic moment or has a rigid moment. I mean, that's just part of being human. But to think about that and to recognize that there is another way and you could get back into that river and you just do it again. Who cares? No one's going to judge you because you were on either side, but jump back in. The water's nice.
You gotta be like Dory, keep swimming forward.
Just
You gotta keep going.
Swimming. Yes.
Just keep swimming. Absolutely.
All right.
As
Well, it's been a
always-
pleasure, Chris. Thank you so much.
No, JoAnna, as always, thank you so much, and looking forward to speaking and collaborating with you very soon. So, from all of us here at Bring Humanity Together and Adaptive Strategies Group, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch our great guest share her story with us today, JoAnna, and everything like that. And again, we would love to hear from all of you guys today. So, you guys have an amazing day, a wonderful Wednesday. Looking forward to speaking and collaborating with you. And then we will have our special guest, Sharon Bird, tomorrow when she comes share her story on Conversation for Humanity, because last week she was scheduled, but due to other things that came up, she's like, Chris, I got to move it to another day. I was like, okay, we'll do a special edition. No worries. We'll make it happen. So Sharon Byrne will actually be our special guest tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and be looking for that on our business page and also my personal page. And we would love for you guys to be there. So you guys have a great day. Make your day. Looking forward to speaking and collaborating with all of you very soon. Have a great one, everyone.
Ciao.